From the Yeti of the snow-peaked Himalayas to the Almasty of Russia and the Sasquatch of the western USA. Every culture has a name for it, but this series isn't about hunting for Bigfoot. It's about hunting for answers.
Bigfoot believers claim they have evidence to support its existence. The problem is that none of it has ever been properly substantiated. But can science, cutting-edge science, actually sort out fact from fiction? Well, a professor of genetics at Oxford University is determined to find out, and I'm going to help him.
That Oxford professor, Brian Sykes, has launched a unique project testing samples of Bigfoot hair from all over the world.
We will definitely be able to identify the species origin of any sample. So if there's anything really exciting, we will find it.
I've been on the trail of the Yeti in the Himalayas. And later I'll be taking on the Almasty of Russia. But this week, I'm in the home of Sasquatch, the USA.
There's a Sasquatch standing there looking at me. And it just stepped right from myth right into reality.
I'll be immersing myself in the world of America's Bigfootologists.
This creature brought me back to my people, to where I need to be.
And meeting the notorious Sasquatch killer.
But you shot?
Yeah.
Why?
Because there was a monster in the woods.
We're launching the world's first scientifically rigorous Bigfoot DNA analysis. Whatever the answer, it's Judgment Day for Sasquatch.
I heard that.
Did you hear that? They're coming.
They're coming here?
Yeah, they're coming. It's feeding time.
America's Sasquatch heartland is the Pacific Northwest. Stretching 700 miles from Northern California through Oregon to Washington State, it's home to some of the remotest landscapes on Earth.
It's easy to see why you could believe that forests like these hide a creature unknown to science. And there are plenty of people who do believe, and they're determined to prove they're right.
From the explorer who first heard tales of skookums from native people in 1847, to the journalist who coined the term Sasquatch in 1920, and the giant footprints that started a craze in 1958. The Pacific Northwest has been home to over 1,000 alleged Bigfoot encounters. The creature is ape-like, tall, 7 to 10 feet, heavy, 600 to 1,000 pounds, hairy, from red to beige, brown to black. For decades, science has scorned the idea of Bigfoot and anyone who studies it. But now, a top scientist has waded in.
Legends of the Yeti have been around for ages. Well, now the search for the larger-than-life creature is getting some serious academic attention.
Oxford genetics professor Brian Sykes is a scientific pioneer. The first man ever to extract DNA from ancient human bone. Now he's launched the Oxford-Lausanne Collateral Hominid Project, the most ambitious analysis of Bigfoot DNA ever undertaken. Hair is the key. Beneath the tough keratin shell of hair shafts, Sykes has found genetic time capsules and the ability to read their secrets.
What's really bugged any serious attempt to identify species up until the last couple of years is that there's always human contamination. And I can tell you, it's damn difficult to get rid of.
Sykes has developed a unique multi-stage cleaning system that removes all contamination. And he's using his cutting-edge new technique to take on the world of Bigfoot USA.
Bigfootologists and other enthusiasts seem to think that they've been rejected by science. Now, I think that's a complete distortion of what science is about. Science doesn't accept or reject anything. All it does is examine the evidence, and that is what I'm doing.
Brian has put out a call for so-called Bigfoot samples for testing and has carefully selected the 12 best hairs from the most credible sources across America. And while he begins his analysis, I'm traveling over 5,000 miles to the heart of the Pacific Northwest itself. I want to meet the Bigfootologists who've donated the samples and find out what drives their search for this elusive creature. One of those samples is highly controversial. It came from the so-called Sasquatch killer, Justin Smeyer. Justin claims that he shot at an adult and juvenile Sasquatch, and that he killed the younger one. It's made him the most infamous figure in the Bigfoot world today. It all began on a hunting trip to California's remote Sierra Mountains.
In October of 2010, I was bear hunting with a friend of mine up in the Sierras. It was a day just like any other. There was one area that we knew that we liked from the beginning, and we said, yeah, we're gonna go here and we're gonna kill something here, for sure. We came around the corner and we're driving, we look into this open meadow and we see this creature. Me and my buddy saw it at the same time. He slams on the brakes. Maybe for the first second or two, I did think it was a bear, and then I looked and I saw that it was on two legs. I was just sitting there nervous looking at this thing thinking this is a monster. 7.5 to 8 feet tall, around 600 pounds. A couple seconds go by, I decide that I'm gonna kill it. And I shot it about right here, just on the top of its rib. It fell to the ground immediately. You could see the impact, you could see the dust come off of it. And then you have my buddy say, wait, there's more. Then we see two smaller ones, maybe 3.5 feet tall, maybe 35, 40 pounds. Me and my buddy watched them for between 10 and 15 minutes up close. I shot the little one square in the neck, walked up to it, grabbed it. It was still alive. It was bleeding all over me. It had very human-like features. Their eyes had whites in them. They looked awful lot like me and you. I shot a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch. I haven't found a reasonable explanation for what happened to me. I haven't found any sort of way to prove that I'm telling the truth. That's what I'm hoping that this DNA study does. I would give anything. I would give my house if Brian Sykes was able to walk up to me and said, hey, you know, I tested this, and I'm going to be able to show everybody that you're telling the truth.
For Justin, and for all the Bigfootologists of the USA, there's a lot riding on Brian's search for answers. There are almost as many theories surrounding the Sasquatch as there are sightings of it. For believers, it's a giant hairy ape unknown to science, or an early form of human like a Neanderthal. For skeptics, it's a misidentified creature like a bear, or even a plain old hoax. bottom line is that Justin says that he shot some kind of mystery animal out here. Big question for me and everybody else is, what was it? I'm on my way to meet the Sasquatch killer in the remote Sierra Mountains in Plumas County, Northern California. Justin Smeyer's story has divided the Bigfoot world. For some, he's a hero who finally bagged a Sasquatch. For others, he's a murderer. And some have called him a liar. Either way, I felt a bit spooked as he led me onto his kill site.
I was standing right here. Right. So just, what was he doing when you saw him?
Well, when we saw it, it raised its hands.
So was it on all fours to start with?
No.
So it was actually standing up?
We look over and we see this thing standing just like I'm standing.
And like this?
And we see it raise its hands.
But you shot?
Yeah.
Why?
Because there was a monster in the woods. No?
I find, forgive me, but
No,
I honestly, listen, I do find it really hard to get my head around, because if this is something you've never seen, you're up here every weekend, have been ever since you were a lad,
sure,
and you've never seen one of these before, I think I'd pick up my phone first and try and take a photograph of it.
Looking back, absolutely, I would have not taken the shot. I would have gone for my camera and I would have put it straight down the scope, taken the picture, got the clearest picture of this thing anyone's ever seen. Maybe you'd call it bloodlust or something, where I looked at this thing, I knew I was going to shoot it.
As an animal lover and vet, I found all this bloodlust stuff a bit hard to take. Justin told me he hadn't killed the adult and it had got away. He shot the young one though, at close range. And when he got to it, it was dying.
This is where it kind of all happened at, right here. It was choking. It was blood was coming out of his mouth. It was choking.
How do you feel at this point?
That's
pretty traumatic, isn't it?
At this point, I've decided that I made a mistake. You know that decision where you think about something, you do it, and then almost before it's over, your heart stops. And then you're like, what did I do? What did I do? What did I do? And I'm sitting there looking at it, and it opens its eyes, and it's got white, like we do. Which I didn't know if that was normal for an animal.
Did it just you've got it here, like this, by its chest, the skin on its chest, and its head's that far away from you.
Yeah.
And it opens its eyes and looks at you.
Thinking back to this creature, you are holding this creature, you know, as it lay dying in your arms, and you're looking down at his face, and I want you to look at his eyes now, and did they look like they were set closer together?
I wanted to see that face, so I put Justin together with former FBI forensic artist Robin Bursell.
Yeah, that's looking about right. I'll look at the whole picture, yeah.
All right.
After 2 pretty intense hours, we had a result.
Yeah. That's it.
You pulled this animal up by its skin, so it was facing you. Yeah. So it's right in front of you. Sorry. So you ended up with it there.
Yep.
Right in front of you. And is that what it looked like? If you look away and you do that, is that what it looked like?
Yes.
After he'd killed it, Justin feared he'd get caught if he took the body out of the national park. So he buried it, intending to return later to get it back. But heavy snow came, and predators too, and when he returned after 3 weeks, all that remained of the infant's body was a piece of hairy flesh, known as the Sierra steak. Justin gave some of the hairs from it, and blood scrapings from his boot as well, to Brian. when he met him in California. Now those hairs are back in the lab, and the analysis that will finally give Justin some answers has begun. For me, I think that this whole dark tale has come to dominate his life. What is my feeling about Justin? There are two options, really, and neither of them are good. You know, one option is that it's a completely fabricated story. It's a lie. Yeah, if it's a hoax, why would you take the risk of having your story utterly blown apart by giving samples to Brian to test? The second possibility is, let's assume it's true. But if that is true, it is horrendous. What a terrible thing to do. Be very, very interesting to see how Brian gets on with his tests. I'm on my way now to see the next donor to Brian's project. And after meeting Justin, I'm not sure what to expect. Placer County, Northern California, was once the heart of the Californian gold rush. Hair donor Dan Shirley, veteran of the Vietnam War, and his mate Garland Fields say they found treasure of a different kind here. A whole clan of Sasquatch. And Dan claims to have found the means to talk to them.
In my opinion, wood knocking is the best source to communicate with Sasquatch. I know there's still a lot of researchers out there that still do the stereotype where, you know, they're out in the middle of the night, you know, the howling. I've never got a response from it. So, but the wood knocking, every time. Every time.
Dan and Garland are convinced that the curly blonde hairs they've sent to Brian are neither black bears nor wildcats, large mammals they've encountered here in the Californian woods. What you got there, Garland?
Oh, this is bear repellent.
So we got to be wary of bears in here?
Yes, you have to be wary of bears, and we have some cats here too, male and a female.
Big ones?
Yes, very big.
We're here. If you don't mind, we got a little ritual we do every time we come here in this woods. Do a handshake of good luck and be safe.
Yeah.
And also, we don't know if either one of us is gonna come up out of here or not.
Yeah. So should I do that as well then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bless you.
Okay, stay safe.
Yes.
Stay safe.
Stay safe.
Okay.
You guys ready? Here we go.
Do you always do it in pairs? Do you always come out together?
Oh, yes.
Yes, mandatory.
Yeah. Oh, you bet. Yeah, we are the team.
And here's one of the knocking spots.
A knocking spot?
Yes. They use that rock to do wood knocking.
And that's how they knock.
So do you think, Garland, that, I mean, a Sasquatch would have actually picked that rock up?
Yes.
It's not just been put there by like a walker?
No.
No.
Were you sniffing for them then?
Yeah, I'm trying to smell them right now. It's like playing a guitar. I'm looking for the right chord.
Yeah.
It's the right chord.
Okay.
So this has taken me 3 years to perfect this, so. That's one. Then I'll do another one. See the difference?
Did you hear that? I heard that. I heard that.
Did you hear that?
Thump.
Yeah.
We all distinctly heard a heavy, distant thump. We had to turn up the volume of our recording to hear it. But it certainly proved I wasn't imagining things.
Is that the sound? That kind of very dull...
Yeah.
Yep, that's them.
That's them.
What?
Yes, they're hitting on a very large tree. That's them.
Did you hear that?
Do it again. Keep the conversation going. That could be somebody doing some DIY on their house or something.
Yeah, the closest home to here is probably 4 or 5 miles away.
And that sound is weird.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. It's not normal. It's not a normal sound.
And I hadn't heard that before at all, walking through here, and I was listening.
The hair on your neck rise yet?
A bit. A bit, yeah, all right, a bit. Yeah, the hair has risen on my neck a bit. So yes, again. That was louder.
They're coming.
They're coming here?
Yeah, they want to eat.
Yeah, they're coming. It's feeding time.
You're very chilled about this, Garland.
Oh, I love it out here. It's the city where I'm nervous. Crazy people in the city.
Dan's samples for Brian came from the tree that he and Garland bait with apples. A favourite Bigfoot food, they told me. And from a fence nearby.
The one sample here off the bait tree. There's only one animal in here that comes and takes those apples, and that's what we know it is.
So you're utterly confident, absolutely confident that samples you've given Brian, he will come back with results that say, actually, you're onto something here, Danny.
I think I am. Like I said, I think I am. I have no doubts. I don't have any doubts.
I mean, it was a bit spooky and unnerving when I heard that booming noise when Dan was knocking on the tree. But that could be a whole host of reasons. You know, it could be somebody pile driving on a construction site, it could be a quarry, it could be a whole host of things. But no, as far as they're concerned, absolutely no question at all. It has to be Sasquatch. It strikes me that Dan and Garland are less researchers, more believers. It's beginning to feel more like religion than science. And I feel the need to get a bit of context. So I've come to where the faith was born over 50 years ago. Willow Creek, Northern California. And yes, this cage really is standing by for the big guy. It was near here on a remote logging road in 1958 that a digger driver called Jerry Crew found a series of huge footprints. And a legend was born.
So you, Mr. Jerry Crew, started it off. A humble bulldozer driver stumbles across some very human-looking footprints. That is the cast they made in 1958. And in a stroke of absolute genius, the local newspaper, the Humboldt Times, must have scratched their heads, had committee meetings and goodness knows what. I think, what do we call this thing that stands on feet so huge? I know, Bigfoot.
Tall creatures or tall tales?
Looks like an ape. Got long arms.
It just looks like a man, but it's tall.
The public consciousness was set ablaze, and ever since, America has been gaga for this big-footed legend.
Every night, squads of men with loaded rifles take off in search of Bigfoot.
Over the years, enthusiasts flocked in.
$1,000 award for solution of Bigfoot.
More creatures were sighted.
It went mad here. It simply went mad.
And many a footprint was cast.
I mean, that looks as if it's been made in a kindergarten clay modelling session.
Then came a bit of a bombshell when Jerry Crew's boss, Ray Wallace, died in 2002.
Ray's family suddenly came out and said, actually, it's all a big hoax, because Ray had made 2 huge wooden feet and had made the footprints. I bet that caused some head scratching.
The head scratching continues to this day, with many insisting that the wooden feet don't match the prints Jerry Crew found, and that the Wallace hoax claim is itself a hoax. 50 years on, footprints remain the key evidence for Sasquatch. Ambiguous and hard to interpret, these alone will never resolve the debate.
That is what is so starkly different to what Brian's doing. Because what Brian is doing in testing DNA is he will come up with fact. There will be no debate. It will be fact. And that's what makes Brian's work so important.
Back in the lab, the hares have entered the sampling machine, which analyses organic samples and produces DNA sequences. It costs over £200,000 and achieves in hours what used to take many days. Each hair sequence will then be run through GenBank, the DNA database of life on Earth. A match and the hair is from a known species. No match and a new species has been found.
The good thing about this project is it's not that every single sample has to be an unknown hominid. You only need one.
I'm embarking on the last leg of my journey by my all-time favourite means of transport.
This is one of the best bits of the job for me. Lots and lots of flying. I did my private pilot's licence probably about 10 years ago now, but I haven't flown in a light aircraft for about 5 years. This is going to be special. So, 20 knots of wind, George?
20 knots.
20 knots of wind. Some of the most beautiful landscape to fly in the world.
Absolutely.
Get this thing cranked up.
Let's go.
And we're off.
I'm heading 500 miles north to one of the remotest parts of the Pacific Northwest, Washington State's Olympic Peninsula. It is truly spectacular. Its mountains are snow-capped even in the summer. And lower down, its deep temperate rainforests are America's hottest spot for Bigfoot encounters.
The size of Wales with a fraction of the population. The Olympic Peninsula is almost 9,000 square miles of mountain, forests and lakes. And down there, at the end of Lake Crescent, is the HQ of the Olympic project. It's run by a committed and fervent Bigfoot believer who's been tracking them for almost 30 years.
For Derek Randall's sample donor to Brian's project, it all began on a spring day in 1985.
What happened to me that day did seriously, literally change the course of my life. Myself and 2 friends of mine were hiking up in the Olympic National Park. We had gotten a late start that day, so we went about 6.5 miles up trail, a little bit late in the day. And we're losing light, you know. And we found a nice level, like a little meadow area with a timber line about 40 yards over from us. and we hear this crash. And it just kind of all stopped us in our tracks. You know, we're literally in the middle of nowhere. All of a sudden, this rock comes arching out of the timberline, and it's not falling off a cliff because we were on top of this finger ridge. There's no cliff there. The rock was thrown. So this rock hits the ground, and we all just look at each other like, what in the world? And another one comes. Thunk, right next to us. And another rock came. That's when we really got scared. We just grabbed up our gear off the ground and started running down this ridge. I got about 10 steps into it and remembered I had a .357 in my backpack. That's the point when I saw it. There's a Sasquatch standing there looking at me, and it just stepped right from myth right into reality. It was terrifying. I would guess somewhere around 8 feet tall. I would guess somewhere probably from 800 to 1,000 pounds. I encounter bears very frequently, and this was not a bear. It was the shape of a human, just very muscled up, very large, and incredibly thick, and just incredibly big, very heavy. And no, there's no mistaking whatsoever. I was freaked out, I was scared. And I ran all the way down that ridge to the trail. You know, I'm not nuts. I know what I saw, and I've seen more than one. There it is, they're real.
I caught up with Derek at one of the Olympic Project's regular field seminars.
We teach 5 classes on wilderness survival project.
Today, it's footprint casting, from expert David Ellis, casting his own foot.
We're looking for details in the print itself.
Derek is convinced that the peninsula is one of the great Sasquatch hotspots of the world, and that we're standing in a corridor that they regularly use.
So would you say this is Sasquatch country?
Central.
Absolutely central, which is why you're here.
Yes. Yep.
So if you hang around here long enough,
yes,
you will see one.
No. I'm in the woods 5 days a week, and I have been for a long time. You know, almost 3 decades. I've seen 2. So when you average things out, you take the normal person that goes into the woods on their vacation once or twice a year, they're going to win the lottery before they see a Sasquatch. It's a tall order, and it's a tall order because, number one, this is my opinion, there's not that many of them. Number 2, they're very intelligent. Number 3, they're hypersensitive and hyper-aware.
If you've localized it and you want this predictability, you're pretty sure this is a corridor.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, there are going to be a lot of people who just say, well, why don't you just stake this corridor out with cameras, thermal imaging, movement detectors, the whole lot?
Well, it all boils down to money.
Track it. Is it?
Yeah, I mean, right now we deploy about 56 cameras. These cameras are about $600 a piece. It's great in theory, but until a rich person steps up and says, hey, we're going to give you a couple $1 million, let's stake this area out, that's not even feasible. Even with 56 cameras, you're a complete needle in a haystack.
From that haystack, though, Derek has plucked a sample for Brian that he has a lot of confidence in.
It didn't look like bear hair to me. And it came from about this high up in a blackberry bush. And it was in conjunction with a track line. So it's very convincing. I think that there's high probability that it's Bigfoot hair.
So you've got high hopes for that?
Absolutely, yeah, without a doubt. Sykes is on his game, and I have high hopes. You know, I really do.
Yeah, it's pretty good, isn't it? I do think these 2 toes look a bit odd, though. I would go and see the doctor. Honestly, trust me, I'm a vet as well. So
Okay. Derek is driven, I think, by the need to understand the physically powerful animal he encountered all those years ago. In the nearby Lummi Reservation, though, 50 miles away, Bigfoot is more a creature of spiritual power, deeply embedded in tribal ritual. Marcel Kagi of the Lummi tribe is another of Brian's donors. When he heard a creature howling near his house in 2011, he was convinced it was Sasquatch, and he's heard it several times since. For him, these are experiences packed with symbolism that have had a profound impact on his life.
It did change my life 360 degrees. When I had this creature come to my house and scream, it really shook my cultural beliefs. It made me understand who I am. Kind of like a message from creators. Money's not for you, this is for you. You know, I just lost my mother from just before that creature came here. So it's almost like a message that don't go after that world, son. Stay who you are. I was shedding my native ways and my teachings, and I was becoming like all the other people out there. Just corporate America, you know. And so this creature has brought me back to my people, to where I need to be.
Marcel gave Brian hairs he found in his garden that he feels sure were from the Bigfoot he had heard. Now the analysis on this and all the other samples is complete. And Brian is on his way to give out the results. Judgment Day is coming. It's Results Day in remote Northern California. On our way to see Dan and Garland, I told Brian about my strange wood-knocking experience in their hotspot.
I heard that.
And he had an intriguing theory.
Imagine the scene when you're in a particular hotspot wood and there are two groups of Bigfootologists, one on either side of the wood, that start knocking and then the others respond. It would go on for ages, wouldn't it? Then
Communicating with each other,
yes,
yeah.
and not unknowingly.
Oh, very funny. How you doing?
How you doing?
Yeah,
How you doing?
Good to see you. Garland, good to see you. Good to see you.
How you doing, sir?
Good to see
How
you
you
again.
doing? Nice to see you again.
Oh. Right, so you gave me a sample. When I saw it, I thought this looked very exciting because it was quite light in colour. It was straight, so it didn't look to me as if it was the hair of a bear, for example, which is normally darker than that. So I sent it straight to the lab and got the result back quite fast. But it was a black bear, the hair of a black bear. Oh, wow. But I can understand how you would have thought differently, as I did at first. But that's what it was.
Black bears vary a lot in colour, anything from black to red to brown, or even beige or blonde, the colour of the sample Dan gave to Brian. You got a bit of a sad face on.
Me? Oh, no.
You have, honestly.
No, I'm fine, honest. I'm fine.
You sure?
Oh, I'm positive. I'm fine. Positive. I'm okay.
But it's very important not to give up. You get back in there and bring me the real thing, will you?
That's, I just have to prove it that this, you know, it's got to be proven. It just has to be. I can't let it go. No, I'm not disappointed whatsoever. I'll track them right to their front door if it needs be. I'll just do whatever it takes.
I would love to spend more time with them because actually trying to work out what motivates them, what drives them. I mean, both of them, particularly Dan, has had a very interesting life and his experiences in Vietnam and whatever, and you wonder whether actually he is, you know, he's latched onto something that really helps him in his life. Dan seemed to bounce back impressively. Justin was next though. Brian had tested the hairs that Justin said were from the infant he killed. But when I heard the result, I was worried.
It was another black bear, even though the sample didn't look like a bear.
Really? So what about the boot?
I took it to the Fish and Wildlife Lab in Oregon, and you know what? They couldn't find any blood on that boot.
He is going to be utterly devastated. Of all the people I've met, Justin's Bigfoot encounter seems to have had the biggest effect on his life, garnering global attention, both good and bad. I've got the feeling his life could be about to change again.
I thought this was a very, very interesting sample, and I put it through the DNA test, and it turned out to be a bear after all that. The hair was a 100% match with an American black bear.
How does that make you feel?
It's disappointing. I mean, it sucks.
I don't want to appear to be apologetic. I mean, it's obviously not very good news. Genetics is ruthless.
The really tough news was still to come, though, when Brian revealed that the lab couldn't find any blood on the boot.
I couldn't identify that as blood or identify as any particular type of blood.
Two pretty devastating bits of news. I mean, the look on your face.
This is hogwash. This is stupid. I'm okay with reality, except this is terrible news. This is not good. This is not good at all.
Be honest with us. Is this a hoax?
It's ridiculous. What benefit would I have? That, you know, that somebody's going to give me a couple $100 to show up on a TV show? No way. Not financially, not... I am not better off. I mean, if anything, I'm less off financially because I spend all my time in the woods looking for Bigfoot. Is it a hoax? No.
I want to know about you and what you're going to do.
From here, I'll probably go lay in bed and cry for a couple days. And then...
Don't need to do that.
Well, I mean, this is tough. This is my whole life.
Well, what an emotional evening that was. I felt we left a broken man in Justin. This whole Bigfoot story of his has totally taken over his life, and Brian's results, I think for him, were kind of another couple of nails in the coffin, as it were. And I genuinely got the feeling that he would like to turn the clock back and just kind of wipe the slate clean and get back to living his life. And what about the rest of Brian's American results? There were 7 samples from Washington State. 2 were cows. 1 was a black bear. 1 was a white-tailed deer. Derek Randall's High Hopes sample was canine, a wolf or a dog. And so was the hair from Marcel Kagi's backyard. And elsewhere in the USA, there was a horse in Texas, a raccoon in Arizona, and way up in Michigan, a porcupine.
Am I disappointed that we didn't find a Bigfoot? I guess it would have been fun if we had, but my ambitions for the project are entirely fulfilled in that we have identified and examined the best evidence and done it in a scientific, systematic and successful way. So I'm really very pleased.
So the kind of science project aside, though, I mean, hanging out with these guys, I mean, they're really interesting, intriguing people, aren't they? I mean,
yeah,
I've never met people like them.
No.
But that sense of the need to believe in some kind of bogeyman, the wild man of the woods, yes. I find that almost more intriguing now than the results.
Quite understandable if you think that we evolved in hostile conditions where woods were very dangerous places. They're full of predators. We've evolved that attitude to unknown creatures, unknown hostile creatures that inhabit our woods and therefore our minds.
In a way, I think this story has turned out to be less about Sasquatch and more about the Bigfoot fanatics themselves and their will to believe. And it's a will driven by a whole mix of motives, personal, spiritual, financial even. But I think something very cool has happened here by shining the bright light of science into the rather murky world of Bigfoot. Brian's given America's Bigfootologists a new direction, a new track to follow, and he's managed to transform a slightly crazy, controversial fringe pursuit into a real science. And that is a massive achievement and a very big step forward. Next, I'm in Russia, where I meet the nation's heavyweight Bigfoot hunter. Locate the skull that could unlock the secrets of Russia's Neanderthal wild woman. And get a taste of Bigfoot speech, Russian style.
Putting the most bizarre home remedies to the medical test tomorrow here on 4 as Dr. Pixie presents Health Freaks. That's at 8:30. Homeland next tonight though. No spoilers, but you really don't want to miss this one.